Yesterday we covered distributive property and combining like terms. Number one is an example of what? Distributive property or combining like terms, or both? Combining like terms, right? Distributive property is multiplication. And when do we have multiplication? When there's no sign between the number and the parenthesis, or between the two terms. So right here we're multiplying. We're going to end up doing distributive property. But see, right here we're not multiplying. Right here we're not multiplying. Right here we're not multiplying, right? So right here there is no distributive property. It's just combining like terms. And you combine them exactly the way it sounds, the terms that look alike. X's with X's, numbers with numbers, apples with apples, oranges with oranges. Before combining, you have to look for that minus negative and change it to a plus positive. And let's combine the x's with the x's. And I highly recommend that when you combine, circle what you're going to be combining. So you have a negative 2x, and let's combine that with a positive 4x. All right, so you got to think of money. You owe 2, you have 4. How do you end up? Having 2 left over, right? And we're talking about x's right here. And then we move on to the numbers, combine numbers with numbers. And if I already used a circle, I'm not going to use a circle again. It'll just be confusing. I want to use some different type of symbol, like a squiggly underline. That's positive 3, squiggly underline. That's a negative 7 or a minus 7. You have 3, you owe 7. How do you end up? Owing 4. So you could put a minus 4 or plus negative 4. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, this is your answer right there, 2x minus 4. Let's move on to number 2. See, when you look at number 2, there's multiplication right here, there's addition, there's subtraction. You have to multiply first. So I recommend when you are faced with distributing, to circle the term that you're going to be distributing and include the sign that's in front. So we're going to call that a negative 3 instead of a minus 3. Negative 3 times 2x, that'll give me a negative times positive is a negative 6x. Negative 3 times, I want to call this a negative 4 instead of a minus 4. Negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 4 is 12. And then after that, I bring down the 5. This 5 that's in front, I bring it down. Bring down the plus 7x, bring that down. And now I look at these 4 terms right here. I have a number, a letter, a number, and a letter. I want to combine the letters with the letters, the x's with the x's. So let me combine this negative 6x with the positive 7x. That's like me owing 6 and having 7. How do I end up? Having one of those x's. Now you don't even have to put the 1. You could just say x, because that means 1x. And then let's combine this 5 with this 12. What do we get then? 17. And is it going to be a positive 17 or a negative 17? Positive, so we put a plus sign in front of that 17. So our answer for number 2 is 1x plus 17. Yay? All right. Let's check out these guys right here. We're going to be multiplying a number times a fraction and fractions with fractions. Now, the reason why we're doing this on the class opener is because today, in today's practice, we're going to be doing distributive property, and there's going to be some fractions involved. So we definitely need to know how to multiply fractions. We've already done this on Unit 0. It's really easy to multiply fractions. All you have to do, if you don't have a second fraction, just go ahead and make it a fraction and multiply the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. So the 3 times 1 and then the 1 times 2. And of course, you have a negative times a positive. What's a negative times a positive? So your answer is going to be negative. I want to put that negative sign. And when we multiply the 3 times 1, we get a 3 up there. And the 1 times 2, we get a 2 down there. There's my answer, negative 3 halves. Now, another tip I recommend is if this would have been a 2, if you had a 2 up on top and a 2 on the bottom, you could just cancel them out. It's a little bit faster and easier, right? So you could look to cancel before multiplying. So once again, we have a fraction times a number. Put that number over 1 so it looks like a fraction. And now right here, instead of, I could say 2 times 12 and get 24, and then 3 times 1 and get a 3, and then 24 divided by 3 is my final answer, 8, right? You guys just saw me explain that verbally. You didn't actually see it. But you could multiply top with the top, bottom with the bottom, and then worry about reducing or dividing at the very end. However, if you do see like a 2 up here and a 2 down there, you might as well cancel it. Or a 2 up here and a 2 down there, then cancel it. But there is no 2 up here and 2 down there or there. But there is a 3 right here and the multiple of 3 up here. Does that make sense? the 12 up here is divisible by 3. So if you see something that both top and bottom that's divisible by the same value, you could cancel and do it, right? 12 divided by 3 is 4. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So why would I cancel first? Because it makes the numbers easier to multiply. 2 times 4 is what? 8. So my final answer is 8 up on top. And then 1 times 1 on the bottom. What's 1 times 1? 1. I don't need to put 8 over 1. I mean, I could if I wanted to, but I don't need that over 1 because 8 divided by 1 is just 8. So there's my answer to this problem, just 8. Now, if you absolutely hate canceling, then go ahead and multiply on the original. You could say, okay, 2 times 12, that's 24. And then 3 times 1, that's 3. And then 24 divided by 3 is 8. That's totally fine. However, I do recommend canceling first and then multiplying. Why is that? Because what if you had some really huge numbers? Like what if you had something like this? Actually, go ahead and copy down 5 and 6. What do we do on number 5? What could we do on number 5? What would you do? Multiply. Okay, tell me specifically which numbers to multiply, Angel. You don't know? Okay, it's this simple, guys. Jonathan? Okay, so Jonathan's talking about canceling out. That's great. Because see, Jonathan sees the 9 up here and the 3 down here. Those guys actually could reduce by 3, right? So 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So let's do exactly what Jonathan said to divide those by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now, does anybody see anything else that you could reduce by?
10.
The 10 and the 2, right? The 10 and the 2, we could reduce those by what? Could you reduce 2 divided by 5? Will that work? No, right? Okay, so not by 5, but by 2, right? Reduce 2 by 2 and reduce 10 by 2. Okay, so let's do that. 2 divided by 2 is 1 up on top. 10 divided by 2 is 5 on the bottom. Okay, so now what we really have here is the fraction 1 over 1 times 3 over 5. And we have a negative times a negative, which is a what? Positive, right? So we have a positive what kind of fraction? When we say 1 times 3, we get 3 up there. 1 times 5, we get 5 down there. Positive 3/5 is our answer. So Carlos, on number 6, you're saying to divide 49 and 7, divide both of those by 7, right? Yeah, perfect. So we have a 49 and a 7. We're going to reduce both of these by 7. You could divide 7 by 7. You could divide 49 by 7. All right, so let's actually do that. 49 divided by 7 is 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. Now, could we reduce anything else? Let's call on somebody. Fabian, could we reduce the 6 and the 72 by anything? Yeah, what could we reduce both top and bottom by? Now, let's say that you didn't know, right? You could, this is an even number, this is an even number. You could at least reduce by what? By 2. You could cut them both in half, right? So let's say that you don't know your multiplication tables that well. Let's just reduce. What's 6 divided by 2? That's a 3. What's 72 divided by 2? That's 36. If you cut that in half, right? So the question is, could we now reduce the 3 and the 36 by 2? No, we can't. But could we maybe reduce by 3? Like 3 divided by 3 is what? 3 divided by 3 is 1. So you could get a 1 up there. And the 36 divided by 3 is 12, isn't it? So you see, we could cancel, and it doesn't have to be with the biggest value. You could just cut it in half by dividing by 2 and then dividing by 3 until you get to a point where you can't reduce anymore. Okay, so now what do we have here? We have 1 times 7, that's 7. And then we have 1 times 12, that's 12, so 7/12. But we had a positive fraction to start with times a negative fraction. What's our answer going to be? Negative. So negative 7/12 is the answer to that one. And once again, I'm reviewing multiplying fractions because on our assignment right now, on our practice, we will be distributing some fractions. So on this practice, ladies and gentlemen, on this practice, this first part, 1 through 6, it's just distributive property. And then down here, 7 through 12, it's just combining like terms. And then the last part of this worksheet, 13 through 18, that's both distributive property and combining like terms. Now, I do want to go over distributive property with fractions. A lot of people get so confused with fractions. It's really not that bad. We know how to multiply fractions. It's not that bad. Let's actually show our work here. When we distribute anything from the outside of the parenthesis to the inside, draw an arrow, and let's rewrite our actual problem, right? 2/3 times the 6x, but of course that 6x, we're going to put it over 1. And then we're going to say 2/3 times 5. And you know what? We might as well do this. This is a positive 2/3 times a negative 5. We might as well call that a positive times a negative. It's going to be a negative down here. So let's put a minus sign right here. That way we don't have to worry about the signs anymore. Again, a positive times a negative is a negative. That way we don't have to worry about the signs anymore. Now we could just write the 2/3 times the 5. Let's write that out. 2/3 times 5. And now what we really have here is two multiplication problems of fractions. Let's put the 5 over 1, and let's do this one first, this one second, get our two answers, put the minus sign right between them, we'll be done. Okay? So if you're patient and you write down all the steps, you shouldn't make any mistakes. Check it out. When I multiply these fractions, do you want to multiply top with top, bottom with the bottom, and then cancel? Or do you want to cancel first and then multiply? Cancel first, then multiply? Okay. So 6 over 3, we could cancel both of those by what? Reduce both of those by what?
3.
By 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So on this first answer, what do we get? We get 2 times 2 over 1 times 1. What's 2 times 2? 4. And 1 times 1 is 1. So we don't need to put over 1 because 4 divided by 1 is just 4. So we don't need that divided by 1. So the first part of our answer is a nice, beautiful number, 4. Now, on this next fraction, could I cancel this 2 with that 1? No. Could I cancel this 3 with that 2? No. Or this 3 with that 5? No. There's nothing to cancel. So we just multiply top with the top, bottom with the bottom. So 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 1 is 3. And then the minus sign that was between them stays between them. I almost forgot. This first term has an x in it. So this cannot just be a 4. It has to be a 4x. It had an x. It has an x still. So 4x minus 10/3 is your final answer. So I hope that we could do the rest of these distributive property problems with fractions. The key is to show your work. Would you like to see any of these worked out for you, or do you guys want just time to work on it? The answers are on the back so you can check your answers. Nobody wants to see any of these? No? Okay, so let me tell you this, guys. We might have a pop quiz tomorrow. On a Wednesday. A short pop quiz. Almost identical to this worksheet. Now, I can't say that we're going to have it for sure because then it wouldn't be a pop quiz. You know about it. But you kind of know about it because there might be a pop quiz tomorrow, if you know what I mean. And on that pop quiz, I probably will only ask you 10 of these 18 questions. So please make sure that you understand it.